Hey everybody, and welcome back to Nerd Center. On today's video, we're going to be looking at some comic books. And today's comic book is not going to be from Marvel or DC, but it's going to be actually from an independent publisher. And some of you may have heard of him or this comic book. Some of you may not. It's been big news in some circles, and some people have probably never heard anything about it. But they're going to be talking about Isom #1 from the Rippaverse. Just my copy right here, so I have it. And this comic book was created by a guy on YouTube named Eric July. For those of you who don't know, kind of the background of this, he's a YouTuber. I've actually been following him for probably a couple years now at this point. He does videos on comic books and that kind of culture and some political stuff as well. And he kind of has had issue with, as if me and other people, a lot of other people have, with the state of the comics industry and superhero stuff in general. And so he kind of put his resources into making his own comic book. And so, being a supporter of his channel, I wanted to check out this comic book and see if it was any good. And I was able to finally get it in the mail. I was able to get a t-shirt and the book. And I was able to check it out and give it a read the other day. And I just kind of want to talk about it and share my thoughts of how it went. I'm not going to spoil anything in this review because I know a lot of people have not gotten to actually get it yet or read it. So I don't want to like ruin it for anybody, but I just want to kind of give my general thoughts about the book and the situation. Since this is just a non-spoiler review, I'm just going to take a look at kind of my overall thoughts about it, and then kind of the situation that's been surrounding this comic and how it's, kind of competing with the other comic books for even being just his first time making one. So basically, this is about the titular character of Isom here, and it's kind of like his first book. It does introduce other characters, although they're not super prominent, all of them, but you get like a taste of the other character that'll be filling out this world eventually. And this one guy is Isom. Avery is his name, and he, it's kind of like, that's the synopsis on his website, so I'm not really spoiling anything, but he's kind of like retired superhero who's kind of working on a ranch, doing his own thing, when he kind of gets dragged back into it. And I won't go into all the details of what happens, but it kind of just involves that, him getting dragged back into the superhero game. And it doesn't really give us a ton of like backstory as to why, things like, how he got to become a superhero or his powers or whatnot, and what led him to retiring. So we haven't gotten to that kind of point in the book. That hasn't been revealed yet. We haven't had a ton of backstory. We're just kind of starting to flesh out his character a little bit. And it was pretty good. I enjoyed his character. I haven't really grasped everything of his powers quite yet. I would say, I kind of have an idea of what they're doing with his powers, but I'm still not entirely sure what his entire power set is, so I'm sure we'll get more of that as the series continues. And we got looks of other characters that we've seen announced, and some that I hadn't seen. So they're all, I don't know if they're going to be, connected in an Isom book, or maybe they'll get their own books down the line. But there's some characters that I'd be interested in seeing kind of where they go and what role they play in this universe, because after one book, I felt like it explained a lot of, kind of going through, Avery / Isom's character, but it didn't, give me a ton of backstory on all these other characters and how they fit in, which I'm not saying that is like a negative. It's just, I don't know yet, so we'll have to see where it goes from here and kind of how these characters all tie into the universe. It kind of moved at a pretty brisk pace, so that was good. It wasn't slow and boring or anything. There was a good bit of action. We got to see, Avery fight, or Isom, and, kind of, see how he handled himself in these situations and how he kind of interacts with these other characters. So overall, I'd say it's a pretty good start to this comic. Like, it did leave me with questions, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, it just makes you kind of want to know a little bit more about what's going on in this universe. And for so long, you read Marvel and DC stuff, and you kind of, at least if you're a big comic book reader, you kind of have an idea of the characters and the situations. You kind of know things going in, but now you're going in with these brand new characters, kind of like reading an indie comic that you never picked up before. So you're learning the characters, you're learning the world and the situations and how they react to things. So you're just kind of learning and growing with it. And it's definitely left me curious for more. And I'm interested to see where it goes from here. If you look, it's a pretty thick book. You know, this is about 96 pages, I think. But if you look comparative to like a Marvel trade paperback and, you know, the comic, it's the same size essentially as one that covers about, you know, 5 to 7 issues usually of these Marvel or DC trades. So it's a pretty thick book. It's got, you know, it's not like just like a little, you know, 20-page, you know, floppy comic. So it's got a pretty good bit of story in it. And it's very nicely made. So I was impressed. I thought it was going to be more like a thick comic book, but it's more built like a trade paperback. So you could put it on the shelf or in your long box, whatever fits for you. And yeah, I would, you know, if you're interested in supporting or just looking into the comic or Rippa, the creator, I'll link some of his stuff down if you're interested. If you know who he is and want to go check out his channel or his book, I'll do that for you. But there's basically been a lot of controversy surrounding it because obviously he doesn't fit the political and social narratives of a lot of mainstream people. So he's definitely not in their good graces. So might be a lot of people who've never heard of this book, unless you're, you know, kind of connected on YouTube and some other things that are willing to talk about this stuff, because he raised over $3.7 million for this comic book, which is really good and compared probably goes well over numbers that some of the things Marvel and DC is putting out right now. So it's definitely shows you can have a viable, you know, indie comic book. And, you know, maybe not everyone can do it the same way he did, because he did put up a lot of his own capital, his own money into this project. I know not a lot of people can do that, but it definitely shows you that there are people who are willing to buy comics and who are still into comics. And, you know, I've never, you know, ever since I started reading comics, I've been more into reading the older stuff, mostly because I wanted to catch up, but also because I really enjoyed it. So I've never been super into the current stuff as much, but definitely in recent years, it's gotten a lot worse. And even things like Amazing Spider-Man, which I've been subscribed to for a very long time, I did eventually drop, which that was really the only thing current I was keeping up with. And I have a bunch that I haven't read that I had collected, but I haven't read them yet. Because I just kind of lost interest in it, and it just I wasn't really happy with the direction they were going. But, you know, I'm not completely like writing off Marvel and DC. I still collect and read mostly old stuff. I like to collect the trades. So I'm not like completely like boycotting it or anything, but I'm definitely looking to see what alternatives are out there. And this is a good one if you're interested in a good superhero book that's not, you know, filled with a lot of the things, let's say, that are in modern comic books. It's just a good story. And, you know, there's still a lot to be fleshed out, I feel. So I definitely think that it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But just as a one-off good start, I think this is a good one. And I think that, you know, hopefully it'll lead to more good stories, and he's building a universe, so we'll see how that goes. Very ambitious, but, you know, he's proven, it seems like, that he can do stuff like that. And from everything I've seen from watching him, I believe that he can do it. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes going forward. But yeah, that's the Rippaverse's Isom #1. But, you know, let me know, guys, if you have heard of this comic. I'm curious if people who are watching this they've heard the comic before, if they've heard of this comic before, or Young Rippa, the author Eric July. I'm curious if, you know, the word's gotten out through whether YouTube or whatever means of that is, or word of mouth. And I'm curious to know what you guys think. If you have read it, did you like it or did you not like it? But I'm really curious about that. So let me know what you think in the comments. And I thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.